Rachel.
Hey, Doug.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Hey, Jessica.
Hey, how are you?
Hello, Jessica. How are
Good.
you?
Good. I'm trying to do calculations of how many seats will fit in a classroom with 6 feet distancing between them students.
Oh, my Lord. That's going to be tough because we already always run short of classrooms, don't we?
Yeah, and trying to get a hold of the floor plans for these rooms was ridiculous.
Oh, my Lord.
But we're getting there.
Do we actually have floor plans?
Yes, Gwen. I don't know where she got them, but she sent me floor plans for Keenan. So I've got the 3rd floor and most of the 4th floor set on how many students we can fit in a room. And then I've got, I think she sent me Pollard that I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Okay. That one would make sense since it's our newest academic building. Well, good luck with that.
Jessica, when you have those in Tableau and we feel like we have a plan, can you share them with me? We're working obviously on orientation stuff, and that's one of our pieces that we need for the schedule.
Oh, okay, sure.
So Jessica Howell was not able to make it today. She asked if I would record the meeting. So I want you all to know I'm currently recording this meeting. Do you object if I record the meeting and make it available to everyone afterwards?
No, that's fine.
No.
Okay.
Nope, that's fine.
Thank you. I'll probably ask that question again in a minute if other people come in. Did you all see the email from Alan just about an hour ago? It seems to me that the main question we need to decide is, given how intimidating that email looked and how it said there's more to come that's going to be even more intimidating, that's more or less exactly the wording of the email, we need to decide exactly what we can ask faculty to do this summer by way of developing core courses. And when we should make that request, right? So if you look at the agenda for today's meeting, the first item is timeline. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, is talking about timeline. The current plan is next week to issue a kind of Qualtrics survey in which we ask faculty to provide a 1-paragraph description of a course they're considering developing for core, along with the literacy and value pathway, and to get that to us by, let's say, mid-July, along with a couple other relatively easy questions to answer. Then when we have all the information in front of us, let's say we get 40 or 50 such things, we'll sort of arrange them in the core boxes and get back to the faculty and say, we'd like you to develop the syllabi along this literacy and value pathway among the options they gave to us. That way they're not wasting their time, and the first thing they need to do isn't that difficult, just write a 1-paragraph description. However, if we launch that next week in the midst of all the stuff that Alan is saying is going to be coming out in the next week, I don't want to overwhelm faculty, and I don't want them to forget about this. One option that Jill suggested a few days ago is, as part of the Qualtrics survey, to include question like, we realize this is a very full month. If you don't have time to submit a proposal to us now, but would like us to know that you want to do so in the future, please indicate that. Just have a question like that on the survey as well, so that we make clear right up front, we're not immediately asking them to do something they don't have time to do. We're just asking for kind of information. Do you intend to do this? What kind of literacy or value pathway are you aiming at, do you think? I'm not sure. Just ask a kind of general question like that to take the stress off. But my question remains, should we do that next week, as the current schedule suggests, or should we hold off to the end of June to do this so that people have a chance to get the information from Alan and digest what it is they need to do by way of getting ready for hybrid courses or whatever else for fall semester? Anyone have any thoughts about that?
My
I don't think
suggestion.
it hurts to ask. Sorry.
What was
No,
that?
go ahead, Chris.
I don't think it hurts to put it on people's radar in a Qualtrics form, especially if we're not asking them to submit anything anytime soon, right? But it should be on their radar. It's like, oh, this is going to happen, but they're not asking us to do this, so I should put this on my mind. I shouldn't just ignore it.
Okay, and you think that would not be too off-putting or too stressful for faculty, just have that put on their radar?
I don't think so, Doug. I think, in fact, it seems to me from what Alan said that they're probably going to be requiring us to do some training and other stuff later in the summer.
Yes.
So it seems likely to me that people will be much more stressed come mid-July and later as it's getting closer than they are now. And because, like Chris said, we're not asking them to do a great deal anyway. It's just, here's my idea and here's what value pathway and literacy. I mean, it's...
I'm getting some weird audio from somebody. Anyone else saying that? Okay, I guess it went away. Okay, so we have two people suggesting that it would be a good idea to issue that Qualtrics survey next week. Better then than doing it later. Any other thoughts?
Sorry, guys,
You're fine.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my Wi-Fi went down, sorry.
Oh, you're good. So we have a couple faculty suggesting that doing it sooner rather than later is actually a good idea, and that it wouldn't be too stressful. So to go ahead and issue the Qualtrics survey next week. Any other thoughts about that? No. Okay. So Jill, technical question for you. Is it? I'm not. What would be the best way to issue such a Qualtrics survey such that faculty could access it over a period of a few weeks? How would that be done, do you think?
We just leave it open. I mean, I can give you the link to compose the email, and you just embed the link in the email, and you send it, or Art or Alan sends it, and then we can send reminders periodically. And then, whenever you want to download, I can send you a download of the responses. And
okay, send email with link and then periodic reminders. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
or I can, if you want to learn how, I mean, everyone has a Qualtrics account, so I could also share it with you. I mean, either it's not a problem to like send you the reports, but I can also show you how to look at it yourself anytime if you want to.
Okay. But either way, we'll make that decision. Okay. So then we'll send that out next Saturday or next week, next Monday probably, with language that is carefully crafted so as not to stress out the people reading the email. Let me get my agenda up here. Now, that was actually the main question I had for this meeting, so thank you for making that a relatively easy question. The next thing is we need to determine what transformative learning amounts to. This is the value pathway that it seems to me is the least clear at first glance what exactly it means, and that and we've had more than one perspective on what it amounts to. Chris was kind enough over the past couple of days to draft some notes, an essay describing what transformative learning is. And I actually do not remember if I sent that around to everyone. Let me do that now. Sorry. Let me just do that again. Let's see. What I'll actually send is. Okay, it should be going to your mailbox, your email inbox right now. I'm sorry about the lack of preparation on my part. I just got out of another meeting involving an app that Flagler will be using to track how COVID is working on campus in the fall. And so I kind of last minute got to getting ready for this meeting. Are you all seeing in your inbox the email I just sent? Okay, so what I wanted, so the idea then is that as part of the course preparation document, the document we send around to explain to people in some detail how to set up a core class, including these notes here. And the language reads, transformative learning is in contrast to the more common assimilative type of learning. Instead of the students simply acquiring new information that can fit easily into their pre-existing knowledge structure, transformative learning aims to create a paradigm shift or a perspective transformation for our students with regard to the respective literacy or course topic. And then we got 5 bullet points, ways to do this. These are processes that create transformative learning. We have an event that demonstrates the limitations of the students' current understanding of literacy or course topic, creating opportunities for students to identify their initial assumptions or biases of the literacy or course topic, creating an environment that fosters self-reflection, open and critical discourse, create opportunities for students to test and apply new perspectives they learn from each other. Then it closes with language, a course that centers around a well-designed and well-executed high-impact practice that includes the above processes can provide a perfect environment for transformative learning. Examples of high-impact practices are learning communities, community integrated education, and collaborative work, undergraduate research. So essentially, then, we're saying a transformative learning class is a class that shakes up a person's frame of reference with respect to a literacy or course topic, and that does it with a high-impact practice. And the I was thinking about that over the weekend. I've actually been thinking about this a lot, and it seems to me that it matters a great deal what you're calling a high-impact practice. So far, all we've really done is provide a list of high-impact practices. That's what the AACU does. They provide a list of high-impact practices. We've indicated a list of high-impact practices. But we don't actually have a definition of high-impact practice. So that faculty could present a class to us and say, what I'm doing meets the definition of high-impact practice, or doesn't, or we could decide it doesn't meet the definition. So I went and I actually got from the AACU another document about high-impact practice specifically. And what it says is that a high-impact practice basically has 2 features. I'm just going to read this from the AACU document. First, these practices typically demand that students devote considerable time and effort to purposeful tasks that require daily decisions that deepen their investment in the activity. So the first has to do with time and effort that increases investment in the activity. And the second feature of a high-impact practice is that they put students in circumstances that essentially demand they interact with faculty and peers in such a way, typically over extended periods of time. So we have substantive engagement, the purpose of which is to increase investment in purposeful investment in the class. So substantive engagement that leads to purposeful investment that's what a high-impact practice is supposed to do. And we're combining that with the idea that a high-impact practice is supposed to shake up the students' understanding the frame of reference for the core literacy or course topic. Ways to do that include learning communities, community education, collaborative work, undergraduate research. As examples. So I think what I'd like to do is, and I apologize, one thing that's happening right now is I actually have another document that I want to send around.
Doug, I think those 5 points on the document that Chris created,
Yes?
I think those would work with the list of like high impact types of practices. I think if you had those 5 points in there too, that would really help faculty when they're designing a syllabus to kind of think about, okay, here are the assignments that are doing this in my class. This is what I need to highlight to have it in transformative learning.
So Rachel,
And that's fairly straightforward, I think.
I agree. The thing that I'm concerned about mostly is if we have a list of, let's say, 4 or 5 high-impact practices that include things like student research, learning community, community and education, things like that. Those are very specific, and each one of them is very hard to do. And I'm concerned that if we make it that restrictive, it'll just be too hard to get enough transformative learning classes. I'm hoping that providing a general definition of high-impact practice, that we can provide more ways for faculty to develop courses in that value pathway.
No, I agree, and I think that if you had that list of 5 and then underneath you said examples of high impact practices might include, but are certainly not limited to, these types of things. But faculty are encouraged to submit syllabi that they feel addresses the 5 points, right, or some of the 5 points above. Just so you make it clear, because you want to, I feel like, I don't know what others think, I feel like you do want to give them some examples of what constitutes one, but equally not, like you said, not scare people off into thinking, oh God, I have to do a learning community to be in here, or,
Right.
And they certainly don't, but I think giving some examples is certainly helpful.
I agree that giving examples is helpful. I absolutely agree with that.
And collaborative work, for example, which is one of the examples, a lot of people do that in their classes, I think.
Right.
Wouldn't really be scary.
I agree with that. What we also want to avoid is we want to avoid making it so general that people are saying, all my classes are like that already, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that I'm going to leave well enough alone. If that sounds okay to people, what we were just saying about transformative learning, then then we'll go with that way of describing the that value pathway. And the what did I just do? Sent items.
Doug, may I ask a question?
Please.
So it seems like what you're trying to say is that there are 2 parts, like we discussed. One is a transformative learning course should follow these 5 steps, but the execution should be a high impact practice, and you are giving us, we will be providing faculty like what we consider would be considered a high impact practice. So in case that they don't want to choose one of the practices that's listed by the AACU.
Could you repeat that last part again? If they don't want to choose one of those practices, then what?
Then they just need to follow the guidelines, the 2 bullet points that you were saying,
Right.
from
Right.
the AACU. Then they can, as long as they can justify it by the guidelines from
That's
AACU, then they can potentially call that a high impact practice
Right.
course.
They can make a case that their course includes a high impact practice by the definition offered by the ACU, the general definition.
Right. Right.
Another way of putting it, and this was actually a source of frustration for me, is a high impact practice is defined as a pedagogical practice that encourages deep learning. And if you ask what deep learning is, it's a kind of critical reflective learning as opposed to assimilative learning. And you then ask, it gets a bit circular. You ask what deep learning is, you're told it's the kind of learning that's implemented by high impact practice. It just gets a bit circular, actually. Mm-hmm. But the key point is that, I think the key point is that it forces students to, it shakes up the student's perspective on the literacy or course topic that's being addressed. I think Chris's way of putting that is very practical and a very good way of putting it. And courses that involve substantive engagement over lengthy periods of time that require critical reflection, that whole general way of talking with the 5 examples listed ends up being that's what a high impact practice is that encourages deep learning. Let's leave well enough alone for now. If everyone's okay with that, we'll go with that. And I have a specific rubric for that on the guide, the version of the guide I just sent out to you by a second email. The transformative learning rubric, our guidelines as ways to assess courses will ask, is the class fostering deep learning and is there a high impact practice? Basically asking those 2 questions. And if we get yeses to those 2 questions, we'll say the course can qualify for that value pathway. Okay, so thank you for listening to me ramble about that for a little bit. The next thing, and this has to do with timeline again. This is from the agenda that I sent around earlier. A timeline question is the core plan asks us basically by way of implementation to do 3 things. 1, get enough classes to run the core in fall 2021. And the Qualtrics survey will be a first step to doing that. 2, ask the different departments to begin changing their majors and their programs in such a way that they incorporate the core plan. And that's the language from the core plan that I have here in the agenda. This is page 8 of the plan that the Senate passed. I'm just going to read this. In order to ensure that the integrative nature of the core curriculum from general education into the majors, disciplines will be required to articulate in their catalog program descriptions the types of transferable skills that students will build upon in their respective majors. So my question, committee members, my question is, can we ask people to do this summer? Or is their summer too packed and too full to be asking chairs and program coordinators to think about changes they're making to their majors to incorporate the new core plan? Finishing reading this, quote, majors will need to integrate these skills into the SLOs for their program level assessment plans if they are not already evident. These skills may include, but not limited to, the 9 literacies in Gen Ed, the Gen Ed core. What this ultimately means is we're asking majors to do things like change what their required courses are because the core itself is changing. Psych, for example, has decided to keep Psych 101 in their major and not make it a core course. But some other majors have moved some of their introductory courses into the core in various ways, and so they have to change what their course requirements are for their majors. In addition, we're asking them all to change the descriptions of their majors, the descriptions of their programs, to keep in line with the new Flagler vision of teaching transferable skills and values that begin in Gen Ed and then continue into the majors. That requires a change in description, a change in approach from the way students engage with their majors as well as with Gen Ed. In other words, we're basically asking every department on campus to do at least a little bit of overhaul. And my question is, given COVID, is it reasonable to ask chairs and ask programs to do this over the next 6 months? And now I'm just asking for comment.
Well, I think the thing is, Doug, unless there's some signal from the administration that they no longer want to try and implement this in fall 2021, then we need to do it, right? I mean, it's not, it may change, but I mean, it's not like they have to do it this summer. They would have to have something ready for the catalog kind of by early next year, right? Which is when the catalog would start to change. And to be honest, I don't know. I mean, first of all, with the SLO part, like when we crafted that and I looked through a lot of the SLOs for the different majors that Jessica had given me, a lot of them already have skills articulated. Interestingly, the political science program did not, but it probably took me a total of 25 minutes to do that, to like look at what we were doing and say, okay, well, what we're actually doing here is academic writing, and if we make that more explicit in the SLO. So it wasn't a huge amount of work. Similarly, I think if, depending on what departments have decided to do with those intro classes, they probably already have it in their mind how they're going to adjust their major to accommodate that, right? Whether it's, we're not going to have that intro class in anymore. I mean, maybe I'm being optimistic. I don't think it's a huge amount of work.
Okay.
It may be for some majors more than others. I don't know, for example, how it'll work for education, but I don't think it hurts to, the last thing we want to do is suddenly throw this at them in December and say, oh yeah, by the way, we need you guys to do this. If we raise the issue now and say, okay, this is something we all need to start thinking about because, in a year from August, we're going to start implementing this.
Right.
And then if some departments have specific challenges, they of course can kind of talk to us and but I just feel like there's no advantage in putting this stuff off. I think it's just going to make it seem more pressurized. And I know it's hard to tell what's going to happen in the fall. But let's just say on the most optimistic level that things are not hugely disrupted from the norm. My anticipation is that the plan will still be to implement this in fall 2021. And I'd rather that we were prepared to do that than suddenly fumbling and saying, okay, well, everything's great now, let's catch up. I don't think we've got anything to lose by trying.
Well, we have faculty buy-in to lose by trying. That's one thing we might have to lose. If we get a bunch of faculty saying, what the hell is this? You're still asking us to do this? Are you crazy? There's going to be at least some of that.
Well, if that's the case, then maybe we need to talk to Alan and Art and ask what their expectation is, right? And instead of us assuming, do they still expect for this to be fall 2021?
So, to be honest, Rachel, I don't think this is on their radar at all, particularly. I asked them about this a couple of weeks ago, and I sent out. We were about to launch the Qualtrics survey 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, and kind of at the last minute, I sent an email to Alan, Craig, and just everyone I could think of, and say, "Tell me to stop if I should stop." And Alan said, "Stop," and wait 2 weeks. But I don't think he's otherwise thought about this. I'm not getting any communication from them, despite reaching out a few times. I'm not getting much back and forth about how are we thinking about core implementation choreographed with all this COVID stuff. I feel a little bit like I'm flying blind, to be honest with you. And what I don't want to do is really fuck up and then get like the entire faculty in revolt because they're being asked to do like these difficult things with COVID preparation and at the same time being asked to develop course syllabi. Your appraisal of how the next few months, if they go well, will go well in a way that doesn't really create that much problem for people, outside of maybe perception, that they'll expect a problem, doesn't really end up being much of a problem. I appreciate that. I guess I'd like to know, just like, do other people have thoughts about this?
Doug, do you think it's possible that you can get perhaps consent from Alan and Art to maybe contact the school deans and solicit their feedback or opinions about?
Chris, I tried that twice. I can't get a meeting with the deans.
I see. Okay.
But
okay.
I guess what I can do is just pressure Art and or Alan again to just make it happen.
Right, or even just have them give you an okay, say, yeah, go ahead, talk to the school deans and see what they think about this, because we're not saying like we have to do this right now, right? What I'm suggesting is gently reach out to the chairs and see how they might react to this, whether they are reacting strongly positively or negatively, or they're just whatever, right? Just to get a feel of how the chairs feel about this.
Just look, just so my beloved committee members don't think I'm slacking, I have twice asked the deans for a meeting, and I have failed to get one. So I am trying to do these things. Yeah.
Honestly, Doug, I think, given what you've just said, I think that Alan and Art have to respond before we do anything. I really do. I feel like they're going to leave us hanging again, like happened at certain points during the fall when we were trying to get this through. And I don't think, as a committee, we should move forward with pushing this until we get confirmation from the two of them that the plan is still to implement this in fall 2021. Because too much is going on, you're right. And I feel like we'll go ahead and do this, and then people will be pissed, and then they'll go to Alan and Art will be like, oh yeah, why were you trying to do this when all of this stuff is happening? I think it's their responsibility at this point to inform us explicitly of whether they want us to continue rolling this out as we had planned, or whether they want to hold off on it and wait another year, wait till the fall, whatever. But I don't like the idea that we're going to be left hanging out there, and like you said, people will be angry at us, even though we think we're just supposed to be doing what we were supposed to be doing. So I get the problem with getting them to respond, but I think as a committee we could agree that we will not do anything until they respond. I don't know if how other people feel about that.
Thank you, Rachel. Any other thoughts about that? That we ask for an explicit green light before we go forward from the Vice President in charge of academic affairs?
Alan
I
needs
agree
to
with
take,
Rachel.
yeah, he needs
I
to take
agree.
responsibility for it and not have us take the hit for it.
And I think just keeping in mind that we may be thinking next August, but March, what is that, 9 months from now, is when we will need to begin advising incoming students on this. So we would need, and then 8 months from now is when we would need to have a course schedule with these classes on the fall. So it's closer than sometimes we think it is.
So Jill,
Right.
is your concern that we need to get a move on, or that this is not realistic, or somewhere in between those two things?
I don't know. I think we all kind of feel overwhelmed right now. I think just having some clarity is what we need, because if we want to do it next August, okay, great. Then that's a priority. That goes at to the top-ish of our list before other things, and that's fine. Admissions may have an opinion on this as well because of how this will affect any because we've already been recruiting marketing. I don't think that horse is too far out of the barn yet.
I've had conversations with admissions. They've in general been very in favor of core reform, and they in general have said don't delay. That even getting 80% of it to work soon is better than not getting anything to work soon. They think the core reform is a good story to tell parents and students. They want this to be able to communicate to people as soon as they can, essentially.
And that's why they need to make the decision, Doug, because I feel like, especially not so much with the course proposal thing that we're doing, the Qualtrics survey, but certainly with the adapting, reforming majors and minors, because that's where department chairs are going to be involved. That request should come from you, but through Alan and Art. It has to come, if they want this to be a priority, if that needs to be something that department chairs have to do in the next 6 months, then they need to make sure that it gets done, right? And not it feel to chairs like, oh, the committee is just like throwing more crap at us, right? Because like you said, buy-in is an issue here, and this is the responsibility, right? If I know everyone's busy and stressed, and if Alan and Art think that we still need to do this for fall 2021, then they need to make it clear, you guys need to get this done.
Okay. Well, then when we're done with this meeting, I'll send an email to Alan and Art asking for that. Okay. And the last bullet point on my agenda has to do with integrated minors, which is an issue that we have kind of put on a back burner. It's only mentioned once in the core plan as passed by the Senate, but it's nevertheless an important thing that it's been played up a lot by administration, And it's in the strat plan in various ways, and it's at least mentioned in the core plan. So it's part of what we're tasked with thinking about. And also, I think integrated minors are going to be an excellent way for departments to get back seats that they lose because gen ed is shrinking. If they can participate in integrated minors, that'll give them back some students and seats that they lost because gen ed classes are shrinking. I certainly intend for philosophy of religion to be doing that, for example. What we need to be thinking about is what we need to provide the faculty by way of assistance in developing integrated minors. I'm also feeling, as I'm saying this, I'm just feeling this out. This feels like this has to be a bit of a back burner thing for right now. That we'll do a bit more with this later.
I would agree, Doug. I think, like you said, a lot of the interest in that came from disciplines that were concerned about filling classes still with core shrinking. Some of them may be really eager to do this, right? It's certainly not something we're going to start, here's another request to come up with integrated minors. But, and I think that can be an informal thing for the time being where, we can certainly encourage people and disciplines that want to do this and offer to help them out if they need help, but not, I wouldn't send out a call for integrated minors, but I know there was some expression of interest, history, English, like you said, philosophy and religion. We've had some thoughts on some from international studies and the liberal arts. We almost have some ready to go in those. And I've seen other people circulating. I think it was Ed McGinley who was working on something to do with environment sustainability. He already had kind of a skeleton plan for something like that. So I would say that's something we can kind of offer our assistance to if people are really thinking about doing that. But yeah, not necessarily push it so much as just make it clear that we are available and certainly encouraging if anyone wants to do that for the next year or two.
Right. Okay. Okay, so taking away from this meeting, what I'll do is get into contact with Alan and Art, and if they do say we do want to keep to the schedule, want to keep going ahead, then I'll get with Jill and we'll launch the Qualtrics survey next Monday with the initial ask for course proposals, and I'll send out the course development guide, the thing that we've been working on for a few weeks now. Along with that, but in such a way that doesn't make it too scary. All we want now is the Qualtrics survey with the one paragraph stuff. And then keep going from there. So those are the items I wanted to get covered for this meeting. Does anyone else have any thoughts or things they'd like to get covered for this meeting? Things they think we've forgotten about that need to be we need to be reminded of, or just new items that have come up? Is that thunder?
Yeah, it's thunder here. That's why I'm jumping up and down. I've got cats freaking out at the back door.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so I don't hear anyone bringing forward any more stuff to go over at the moment. So I'll get those things done, and then in a few days I'll send out a doodle for another meeting. Final thoughts? Okay, thank you everyone. We'll keep this one short.
Thanks, Doug.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.